Theology and Peace and Justice from Chapman University. Welcome, Ariel. Before we get going, Ted and I are going to give a couple moments of our opening comments as well. When we posted this out there, first I want to welcome all of you for showing up, and thank you so much for showing up here. And thank you to Pastor Nets Gomez for giving us this space. It is unbelievable because LA Unified School District, the mayor's office, the neighborhood councils wanted them to step down and not do this. We found it to be extremely important. Everybody that's involved in this is extremely important to get the information out. But as soon as the flyers went out, I started getting attacked right away. Getting attacked throughout the community that I'm a homophobic, I'm a bigot, I'm a this, I'm a that. And they don't even know who I am. I'm going to divulge a little bit of that to you because you came here. My brother-in-law, I held his hand while he died of an HIV, immune system disease. I've held the hands of several people who have died from AIDS. I have several gay friends. It's not that it's my lifestyle. It's that I don't judge people. I accept people for who they are, what they are. But this forum is not about the LGBTQ community. It's about public policy. That's why I'm running for office, because I am a public policy geek. I look at the ripple effects that it's going to have, the unintended consequences that it's going to have. This sex, health, HIV prevention, gender assignment curriculum hidden under the Bullying Act is a very dangerous policy for the minds and characters in the natural growth of children in our school systems. It is unfairly targeting children in public schools. At a recent meeting, the chairman said, I was asked the question, what about the opt-out? He says, well, we do have an opt-out. It's called private schools and parochial schools. This is ridiculous mentality that's being expressed. I have a good friend in the audience that he's been on our show, The Voice of Reason, and it's Daniel DeCrisio. I'm going to front him out here. Daniel, please stand up. On our show, he expressed an opinion, an exact opinion of this curriculum. I'd like you to come up, if you don't mind, and tell me what your opinion is of this curriculum. And he's a celebrity within the LGBTQ community. Can you take the podium, Daniel?
Hello, everyone. Nice to be here. Thanks, Mark, for having me here. My whole opinion on this is I'm a little outraged by it because when you're a child, and we've all been children, okay, how do you know? We don't know. We don't even want our parents around when we're kids, you know what I mean? So we have to learn who we are. And we can't have a curriculum like this. I mean, it's also, yes, it's embarrassing because kids don't know who they are. They don't know. They're still trying to figure this out. So to push this on children, to me, is unorthodox. It's creating pandemonium to me. You can't even have a child make a decision, right? The parents have to make this decision because they're minors and everything else. So when it comes to sex, whether you're gay, straight, bi, tri, whatever you are, that's up to you to figure out, and that's your natural growth. Okay, whether or not you agree with it, your choices, or somebody else's choices, is not anyone's business but your own. So if you're a child and you feel like you are trans, or you're gay, or you're straight, whatever it is, that's for you to decide, and if you need help, there's someone to talk to. But when it comes to sex ed, I think we've all been there. We've all been shy. We've all been freaked out by it, when we have to talk about it. Even now with the adults, we still giggle, we still laugh. And differences are always, frowned upon, made fun of. Everybody seems to discriminate no matter what. But for children, no, I disagree. Mm-hmm. I do not think it should be in the curriculum. I just don't. That's my opinion. So, okay. So thank you, and Take it away, Mark.
See, so when we go out and we talk to people, you may get attacked. The left is going to attack you. That's all there is to it. This isn't about a religious thing. This isn't about, how would you say, fanatics. This is about our children, and that's it. And either we protect our children as parents or we don't. We've been asleep for too long. We need to wake up. We need to protect our children and stand up and be counted. Go ahead, Ted. Go ahead. You want a minute?
As Abby introduced him, I'm a Southern Democrat, Baptist, conservative Democrat. What we're talking about today is the battle for the minds of our children. That's what this is about. And as parents, we're the front line. And understand, we're busy. We have jobs that we have to tend to and so forth. And it seems like something we all have to think about. As time has progressed, we have slowly abdicated some of our responsibilities and duties to the school. But at some point, you have to draw a line in the sand. And I think that line in the sand needs to be drawn today. The curriculum that's being proposed by this school district crosses a line and encroaches severely into our responsibilities as parents, and that's about our kids' sex life, their sex education, their sexuality. And we can't abdicate that. We can't. And so that's what this is about. The school district has chosen to try to keep us in the dark about these things, and we are here to inform you, to empower you, because like I said, knowledge is power. And so having said that, we'll start talking to Mike.
Everybody welcome Mike up to the podium. He will start us off with the first presentation.
Well, I have the honor of being the only evil attorney here, so it's okay. We're going to be all right. I want to, before we begin, I want to echo what both these gentlemen are saying. This is about the kids. It's not about me. It's not about my worldview. It's about kids. It's about who should have the responsibility, indeed, who has the God-given right to take care of their children. That's what it's about. And reasonable people might disagree about how sex education ought to be conducted. I get that. I get that. And there's different worldviews. But who has the right to take care of children, to make sure the children end up with the values that are inculcated not by the state and by the edict of the state, but by the parents and their family and their church. So I started out, the first slide I have up here, I presume that you're able to see these slides. No? Okay. Okay. And it's the importance of this, I hope, is already, if you will, self-evident. We hold these truths to be self-evident. And I want to read this, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among those are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That to secure these rights, and this is important, governments are instituted among men, deriving their powers from the consent of the governed. Unalienable means non-transferable. So the government, please, if I will, the people that prepared this curriculum, they're there because of the consent of the governed. It's you that gives them the power. That has been forgotten about in many halls. I don't care whether you're talking federal government or state government. It has been forgotten. But it's your responsibility to remind them that the consent of the governed is why they have the power that they do. So where does that come in? We have this so-called Healthy Youth Act. And once again, the idea of teaching sex education, that's been around for a long time. It was pretty nerdy when I was a kid, which is a long time ago. Now it's a lot more advanced. But I argue that we're now into a place where we're completely moving in a direction with regard to sex education that is foreign to our nation and is foreign to the values of most people in this country. So this act, and I argue that the worldview of this California Healthy Youth Act, some call it CHIA, is one, advance the SOGI ideology in all public education. That's sexual orientation, gender identity ideology. Deny biological reality, or that is objective truth. Sexualize children at the earliest age possible, and undermine parental authority. Now, why do I say that? How do I know that? Have I talked to the people that drafted this bill? No, I have not talked to them. But if you look at the curriculum, you see that what has happened here is a wholesale removal of the parents' ideas. And you also heard before we started this kind of a tug-of-war that parents have to get involved in this. That's ridiculous. That shows you that there's a problem here, doesn't it? If this was an open, hey, we're just here to make sure that everybody gets represented, everybody gets taken care of, wouldn't they be free to say, here, come on in, let's take a look at this. Here's what we're proposing. But that's not the case. So we're seeing this removal, the absence of parental authority. Oops, went the wrong way. Sorry, you guys. I'll get used to swiping the right way, I think. Okay, so a comprehensive sexual education, sexuality education is what it's known as. And so we look at this, we see, according to the World Health Organization, the sexuality encompasses sex, gender identities and roles, sexual orientation, eroticism, pleasure, intimacy and reproduction, thoughts, fantasies, desires, beliefs, attitudes, values, behaviors. Should that be part of your fifth grader's education? And then that's the question. And that's the question. And it's not just Christians that think this. There's a lot of people from all different faiths. There's a lot of people from all different political backgrounds who think this is not the way to go. So we are told by the state that schools shall provide this CSE for ages 7 to 12, and they may provide CSE for ages 6, kindergarten through 6. There's no opt-in required. This is a change. Historically, sex education was something that parents had to affirmatively opt into. But that changed with this law. Now you have to affirmatively opt out of this education. And the question is, do people know that? And from my experience, people don't know that. People don't understand that they have to go down there every school year, not just once for your entire, from kindergarten to 6th grade and 7th through 12. Parents have to go down there and get involved. And they have to do that for them. So this opt-out, and there are, I understand, opt-out forms. We'll talk about that will be available here today, and so we'll talk about that. So we believe that this is, and it's already been said, a dangerous assault on the innocence of children. Shouldn't children be able to be innocent for a while? Shouldn't children be able to say, you know what, I'm not going to worry about sexuality because I'm in 4th grade. You know, I mean, can't children do that? Can't children affirm that for themselves, and parents be able to deliver to the authorities, their children, and not fear that they're going to come home and bring up things that you're thinking, wait a minute, you just did something to my child that is irreversible. It can't be changed. Once this innocence is crushed, it cannot be changed. It can't go back. So when we talk about a health framework, the framework itself is not curriculum. Each district can choose whatever elements of the framework that are applicable, and the framework is simply a guideline. It's a guideline for school districts to use. So let's take a look at some of this. By the way, your tax dollars have been used to create this. We have laws that have been done. We're going to be, the curriculum is created, frameworks are created, and it's generally done by people really outside the framework of education. And that's the ACLU, the California Teachers Association, and Planned Parenthood. Now, these people are not disinterested, benevolent folks. These are folks that have a frame of view that they have no problem inculcating your children with. So, did you know that according to this framework, the most reliable way to avoid transmission of STDs is to abstain, this wasn't according to that, abstain from oral, vaginal, and anal sex, or to be in a long-term, mutually monogamous relationship with a partner known to be uninfected. That is, and has been from time immemorial, the safest way of life to keep your children safe, and frankly, for all of us to be safe. In third grade here, when providing instruction on sexual and reproductive organs, teachers can introduce the subject that gender does not always match the sexual reproductive organs described. Of all the telephone calls that I get in my office, this is paramount. My child just came home and said, how do I know if I'm a boy? How do I know if I'm a girl? And the question that ought to be fairly easy if you deal with science, it ought to be fairly easy to tell. This ought to be not really even controversial, that the body parts match sexuality. Now, I get it. There are times, there are situations in people's life, things that happen. Gender dysphoria is real. It is a real topic, but it's something that that can be dealt with, but it's not everybody. All right, let me try to run through this. Educators should create an environment, according to them, that's inclusive and challenges binary concepts. Again, these are just examples. Examples for spiritual abuse, it's called, include religion to justify abuse, insisting on rigid gender roles. So that's called by them spiritual abuse. The uses of LGBTQ throughout the document is intended to represent an inclusive and ever-changing spectrum and understanding of identities. Again, these are, I'm going to go through for the sake of time, these are the makeup of this curriculum, and it's, again, designed to assault at normative values, what has previously been normative values. The curriculum, and there are several of them, the one that has been approved by LAUSD is the Positive Prevention Plus, and there's a governing board with it, and I'm not going to get into the weeds on that. But every school in California, all the districts have gotten this information that has encouraged them and which way to go on this. This is where we're at. So this notion of this idea that we can simply with impunity we can just continue this education is ridiculous. And it has to be, and for those of you that are of the faith tradition, Ephesians 6 says, we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against powers and principalities and the spiritual forces of wickedness. We are called to take up the armor of God, to stand firm in truth, righteousness, prayer, in the Spirit, and faith that rests on holy courage. And there's more to that. But that's what you are called to do, each family, each parent. So much of this teaching teaches the children that there's no parental consent required. It normalizes anal and oral sex for children. It obsessive focus on sexual pleasure. Again, we are talking about young children here, that this, quote unquote, may be taught. Well, it is being taught. That is part of most curriculums that we have seen and evaluated in California. It exposes children to pornography, what is and has always been pornography. And this begins in kindergarten. And so here, under the framework, students will explore and discover their identities, gender expression, and sexuality throughout their education and beyond their high school years. There's one of these programs has this the genderbread person, and it's designed to make this familiar or approachable by children. And this is something that, again, it's not that this information can never be discussed. It's just that you, as the parent, ought to be the one to decide when and if it is discussed. You get to decide this according to your worldview. Let me try to go through some of this so I don't end up. So in this framework, some people say there are only two genders, but there are really many genders. And these are a few: trans, genderqueer, non-binary, gender fluid, transgender, gender neutral, agender, new choice, bigender, third gender, two-spirit. These are some of the things that these students are being given as information. And really, doesn't this do the last thing that we want our children to do? It chips away at their security about who they are as a person. It makes it so that they're less secure, not more secure. And there's plenty of time for these things to be determined as children mature and become adults as well. Some of the recommended literature for second grade: 10,000 Dresses, a story about a boy who dreams about wearing dresses and is lionized as a hero by an older girl who helps him make the dresses. My Princess Boy is recommended in the context students can still begin to challenge gender stereotypes. I think of all this, this is the most dangerous part of this, it's being called a gender stereotype. It's not a stereotype. It's actual biological reality. That's what it is. It's a creative order. All right, let me go through some of these. I apologize. I just want to make sure I don't go over time here. I'll get the hook. Some of these pages dramatizes, and this is for 5 to 8-year-olds, dramatizes an erect penis, labeling of clitoris, vulva, vagina, and anus. Keep in mind that millions of dollars of taxpayer dollars went into the years-long process of making this happen, curating this. The right here, what we see here is child pornography. Okay, it's discussing self-stimulation, heavy petting, foreplay, mutual masturbation, orgasm. And it goes on. But what's the point? Why are we here? Yes, we can talk about the parade of horribles that we have here. The point is that you have rights. You have rights. And I'm sorry, I honestly, you guys, everybody's busy. We're all busy. We have full careers, and both parents often work, and we understand that. But the bottom line is that it's time. It's well past time to take it back, to go there, to be at school board meetings. Because you know what? The people that are for this, they're at the school board meetings. They're there. And that's why we need to be there. We all need to be there. So parents have the right, indeed the responsibility to be mutually supportive and respectful partners in the education of their children. That's the law. That's the law. That's Education Code Section 51101. Also, 60002, each district board shall provide for substantial teacher involvement in the selection of instructional materials and shall promote the involvement of parents and other members of the community in the selection of instructional materials. Parents, the law gives you the right to be involved. Education Code Section 51240. If any part of a school's instruction in health conflicts with the religious training and beliefs of a parent or a guardian of a pupil, the pupil, upon request of the parent or guardian, shall be excused from the part of the instruction that conflicts with the religious training and beliefs. For the purpose of this section, religious training and beliefs also includes moral convictions. This is the law. I am not just making this up. And the students have rights. There's a famous case called Tinker versus Des Moines. And that case says that students and teachers do not check their constitutional rights at the gate when they walk through it. They maintain their rights as well. So you can train your children to be overseers of this and to decide, nope, it's my right. If I get involved in a situation that is uncomfortable or that is giving information that my parents have already taught me is incorrect, I, as a student, have the right to leave. I have the right to go to the principal's office, to deal with this in a way that is not just parents' permission, it's students' rights as well. The opt-out provision of this Youth Act, unfortunately, is designed so that it doesn't apply to some of the materials that are outside of the actual health classes. So, for instance, in a social studies class, if there is a study about gender norms or things of that nature, unfortunately, you cannot opt your children out of that according to the law. Again, I want to at this point, when we come to this kind of a situation, at this point, I want to say to you that this is where, you know what, the school board has some leeway here. The school board can deal with this by either getting curriculum that is not quite as strident, but it also, that's why you need to be there. You need to tell the school board, and I realize LAUSD is a huge district, and it's hard to impact, but that needs to be involved in when you're voting and when you're electing representatives. You need to understand where they're coming from. A famous case, the fundamental theory of liberty upon which all governments, this is the United States Supreme Court, in this union repose, excludes any general power to standardize its children by forcing them to accept instruction from public teachers only. The child, and this is important, is not the mere creature of the state. So even though you cannot opt out of this, you can be involved in your child's education. You cannot be involved out of the social studies classes and other non-health where reproductive parts are not being discussed. but you can be involved in teaching your children when it's time, when these subjects are being dealt with, what they can do and what they ought to believe. Remember, part of the purpose of this is to increase your knowledge and increase your ability to say, hey, this is what's there, this is what's happening, and you can teach your children how they ought to respond and what they ought to think. So you can do this. You can demand to inspect the curriculum. That's required. And so, again, I hear this all the time that they get the runaround. A school district shall make materials available. That's section 5193A. There have been other curriculums done. There's a website, unitedparents.net, whom I thank for some of this information that we've gotten here. Checkthefacts.com is another. 2, you can opt your children out. Again, every year it needs to be affirmatively done. You need to walk the forms in every single year. Parents and guardians have the ultimate responsibility for imparting values regarding human sexuality to their children. That's section 51937. That's the law. And there's more here. There's more. School districts shall notify parents about sex education at the beginning of the school year, but in no case fewer than 14 days instruction is delivered. And this is especially true if someone from outside of the school district is coming to teach. You'll see that oftentimes Planned Parenthood or, in fact, the ACLU, parents have to be notified in 14 days beforehand. No opt-in is required, as we discussed. Again, these are some of the organizations that are involved. Our organization gets involved in these things, PacificJusticeInstitute.org, PJI.org as well. Let Parents Decide and ProtectOurKidsNow.org. Thank you so much. I'm sorry I had to rush through some of this, but God bless.
Michael, if you can stay at the mic for a moment. Can you stay for a moment? A couple of questions come to our mind as Michael is speaking. One of the first things he talked about is he's the evil lawyer. The reason why he's saying that, yes, most of us don't like lawyers, but that's not why. It's because Pacific Justice Institute has been deemed a hate organization because they defend the religious rights of people, nonprofit organization. They defend parental rights. So this Southern Poverty Legal Center, which is a hate organization as far as I'm concerned, is quite often used by the far left as their reasoning for not listening to Michael's presentation. Can you tell us a little bit about the Southern Poverty Legal Center?
Yes, some years ago we became aware that this Southern Poverty Law Center, who used to be a legitimate civil rights law firm, we may not have agreed with everything they did, but now they are really just it's a hate group. It's a list. You wouldn't believe some things like Focus on the Family. It's really benign, somewhat benign organizations are hate groups on this list. And some groups have tried litigation against them. We have decided for whatever reason, the policy reasons, but for our organization not to litigate against them. But some people have said we wear being a hate group by the Southern Poverty Law Center like a badge of honor. And the reason is it's completely unobjective. It's not a factual determination. It's not like there was some major checklist that they filled out. Oh, yeah, these guys qualify. It's just a decision that because we represent people, and we represent people free of charge, by the way, because we represent people in these issues of parental rights, religious freedom, we are hate groups. That's really the essence.
Ted, you got a question?
There are some questions that were posed regarding the material that you were presenting. One of them is, if the law says sex education must be respectful of all faiths and cultures, then how is my school accommodating my family values?
Well, the truth of it is, and I hate to say this, is that if you're not there in front of them, they're not. They're not respecting all faiths. They're certainly not respecting the what I call the Judeo-Christian values. They're not respecting Islam. They're not respecting other religious entities who are against this kind of training. And some of us as religious organizations, we may not agree on everything, but we do agree that parents ought to be the fountain of thought to their children and not the government. So we need to press that issue. You need to be advocates. You're the front line, and organizations like ours, we do get involved. We do send letters. But the teacher of your children ought to know who you are. There ought to be some recognition of your face to them that they can say, yeah, I know that person, and we discussed this. And so they ought to know where you come from. That's the only reason how it's going to be protected. And
I think another question that is probably on a lot of parents' minds. One parent posed, I tried to opt out and was told that sex ed is mandatory. Will my kid have academic consequences if they opt out?
Yeah, and that's a fair question. Again, we want you to feel free to contact pgi.org. We will send letters. It should not, and we have written letters to stop this where, for instance, if the parent opted their child out, then all of a sudden they lose out on a privilege that is, they don't get to go with their graduating class to the senior event or something like that. So that's not acceptable. And so please let us know if things like that happen, pgi.org, and we'll be glad to at least answer your questions, if not affirmatively represent you on that.
Michael, one of the natural characteristics of a teenager, it's called rebellion. But one of the damaging aspects within a teenager's character is called rejection. I'm going to use a little colorful language, not real colorful, but this is what's happening at schools, because I have, let's say, 11 grandchildren. My oldest granddaughter is 18 years old. I have a 17-year-old and a 16-year-old granddaughter. What's happening at the schools now because of this sex ed curriculum is stimulating and sexualizing the children. So they're asking, the boys are pressuring and asking the girls in the school if they want dick pics. They want pornography pictures. They want pictures of their breasts. And the students are harassing each other. And then the girls will harass each of the girls because they want to be included. What legal ramifications do we have in a school that is allowing this style of sexual harassment and bullying, which is rampant right now in the school systems?
Yeah, this is unacceptable, and it needs to be dealt with firmly. And this is not going to be a telephone call, folks. This is a stop by, talk to the principal. If that doesn't work, talk to the superintendent or the superintendent's office. That cannot be tolerated.
All right. All right, Michael, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Really appreciate your presentation. Okay, and next up, we're going to have Sandy Everett, the trustee of the Canal Valley Unified School District.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I am happy to be here. I want to thank Houses of Light for hosting in this beautiful building, and also Ted and Mark for being our hosts up here. As Ted said, I am a trustee in the Conejo Valley Unified School District, which is next door to here. And I do want to start with a disclaimer that what I say today is my own opinion and not that of the school district where I'm a trustee or of the other trustees on the board. But I am a very big proponent of parents' rights and transparency to parents. So what I am showing you today on my slides that I've prepared is for your information so that you can go and be informed and make wise decisions that are right for your own children and grandchildren and whoever else you're here for. So for my next slide, I want to start by talking about a study that was done by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, which indicated, the study found that most high school students are not sexually active. In fact, they studied the LA area, the Los Angeles area, and they found that 70% of the students, the high school students, have not had sex one time. They determined sexually active as having had sex one time. So 70% of the students here in Los Angeles area have not had sex, and that's important to understand when you're looking at this curriculum. The next slide. There are many negative outcomes for teen sexual activity, which is why it is reckless to teach anything that would promote it. Some of those negative outcomes include contracting sexually transmitted diseases, especially because the cervix of young women are thin, and they're not formed and developed as much as an adult woman, and they are much more likely to contract a sexually transmitted disease for this reason. Others are that there's a lower educational attainment, decrease in physical and mental health when the student is sexually active, less attachment to parents, church, and school. And there's others listed there as well. This is all research-based. So the next slide indicates that the ACLU used a finding that was done by a Berkeley professor. He did a study in 2007, and it was used to convince our lawmakers that 89% of parents want comprehensive sex education. However, the definition of comprehensive sex education that was told to the parents in this survey is different than the definition of comprehensive sex education that is defined in AB 329. So the next slide shows, so I'm on slide 5. So the next slide shows that what 89% of the parents wanted when they were saying that they wanted comprehensive sex education, and this was based on the survey, that they wanted abstinence taught, and abstinence was defined in that survey as not having sex until marriage. And the other part that they wanted taught, that 89% of these parents wanted taught, is that about pregnancy prevention and prevention of sexually transmitted infections for those students that are sexually active. They were only given 3 choices, either all abstinence-based, all talking about pregnancy and prevention, or the third, which they called comprehensive sex education. And 89% of the parents chose the third one. The next slide shows that AB 329 goes far beyond this. So if I think we're on the wrong slide. If you go to the slide that has a lot of information, yes, that one. So AB 329 went far beyond the law, or far beyond this definition of comprehensive sex education. So the AB 329 minimizes the abstinence-based approach, and instead it opened the door for curricula to be used, such as the one that's used in LA Unified, which is Positive Prevention Plus. And this AB 329 greatly focuses on prevention of infections, options for pregnancy, including abortion, contraception, including the controversial morning after pill, which is indicated in the law, must be taught. And then it talks about other things that were never mentioned to the parents who took the survey that said they wanted comprehensive sex education. These would be gender identity teachings and ensuring that sex ed teachings include contraception and disease prevention for all forms of sex practiced by various sexual orientations, and that includes oral sex and anal sex, which is covered extensively throughout Positive Prevention Plus. So, like I said, so the next slide, LA Unified has adopted Positive Prevention Plus, and our district has also looked into Positive Prevention Plus, and I have reviewed it thoroughly. This sex ed assumes sexual activity of students. So, and this is different than the CDE recommended approach, which is risk avoidance and primary prevention methods, which are abstinence-based. So you teach the students, we don't do this because that's the only way to 100% guarantee that you're safe and don't contract diseases. So slide 8, the next slide, and go one more. So now I'm gonna start showing you some of the curriculum from the Positive Prevention Plus. So this first slide is, so the slide on the left is the one that our district uses currently because we're about to adopt the updated curriculum. This one is more something that you would see in a doctor's office. It's medical, it's more of a medical picture. The slide on the other side is the one that is used in Positive Prevention Plus for 6th and 7th grade for the female anatomy. You can see that it's much more sexually explicit and does not show internal organs. If we go to the next slide, this is the same thing but for the male reproductive organs, and again it shows a very sexual image showing the erection and ejaculation of the male. The next slide shows something that they use in Positive Prevention Plus, which is called condom negotiation. And the students are told to, therefore, what they're being told is that they need to affirmatively consent to sex, and it assumes the sexual activity again. So students in 7th and 9th grade, this is a lesson that's taught in both those two grades, will turn to each other. They're told to look each other in the eye and tell each other, holding up the condom, I want us to be safe. We need to use a condom. Not only is this embarrassing to students, especially those large percentage of students, in 7th grade, the percentage is much lower than 30% of the kids are sexually active. It's a very small percentage of the kids that have had sex at least once. And so they're told to turn to each other and say, I want us to be safe, so we need to use a condom. The teaching kids that using a condom makes sex safe is medically inaccurate. It gives them a false sense of security because while condoms may be up to 98% effective against chlamydia and gonorrhea, they are very ineffective for other sexually transmitted diseases like herpes, syphilis, and genital warts. This lesson is meant to teach kids that condoms make sex safe, and that's only partially true and never 100% true, and it's not okay. So the other side of this slide is yes means yes, which is another exercise where they assume the sexual activity of the student. And we need to remember that in the state of California, it is illegal for minors to have sex. And so they're telling the students, yes means yes. When you want to have sex, you need to make sure the other person wants to also have sex. The next slide shows a lesson in Positive Prevention Plus, where they're teaching the various forms of sex: mouth to penis, vagina to mouth, penis to vagina, and penis to anus. The next slide has a number of medical inaccuracies, again, that Positive Prevention Plus is teaching to our children. For example, it teaches that outer course is safe. They call it outer course, masturbation and things like this. And you cannot contract sexually transmitted diseases this way. However, if there are open sores or wounds on the person, they can contract sexually transmitted diseases, which is passed by blood. In addition, they're teaching the kids that where to get abortions using a list that they provide to them, but they do not include on those lists usually that they can also talk to their parents and go see their family doctor. The next slide shows other medical inaccuracies, which includes a classroom activity where oral sex is given a yellow light, and so is piercing your ears. So they're equating those two as similar. However, that is obviously not true because oral sex, you have a much higher risk of contracting a sexually transmitted disease through oral sex than getting your ears pierced. This is not okay to teach kids this. The next slide shows is a lesson from 7th and 9th graders where the students are told they can get an abortion without their parents' knowledge or consent. This is not part of AB 329, but Positive Prevention Plus does teach this in both 7th and 9th grade. They tell them that they can go get an abortion and their parents do not need to know about it, nor do they need to get their consent. The next slide shows that it's an image that's used in Positive Prevention Plus for 7th graders showing the pap smears, which some may feel is a little too graphic for 7th graders. The next slide shows that the websites, the type of websites that are given during Positive Prevention Plus lessons. One of these is Sex Etc., and I have seen posts that children can look at, high school students, middle school students, and even as young as elementary school students are given these websites. They can be explicit about masturbation, sexual pleasure for kids, and condoms that are used to make jewelry. Once the condom has expired, you can make earrings and such out of those condoms. The next slide shows that, was already discussed, but this is the teaching tool that's used. The genderbread person is the one used by Positive Prevention Plus. The other one is used in other curriculum. And this, again, teaches that, what they teach is that gender is a social construct and that your reproductive organs may not match the gender that you were assigned at birth. So basically the children are taught that they can choose between the two. The next slide shows, so now we're going to go into some of the resources that are provided to teachers and other, like the librarians and stuff that we can see the kids can have access to at school. So if we go to the next slide, this is from a book that is called It's Perfectly Normal. It's for ages 10 and up. The California Department of Education has approved this book and recommends this book. So basically it's a very sexually explicit picture, and there's a gentleman, Michael Hymick, who is a criminal investigator for the FBI, who made a statement that said, pedophiles use pornographic images to arouse victims, particularly adolescents. They lower the sexual inhibitions, show pictures of other children engaging in sexual activities to overcome those fears, indicating that it is all right to have sex. So while it may be appropriate for a parent to use certain books to impart their values about sex to their children, it may be very inappropriate for kids to find these books in the library or to even have a lesson using these types of books for the young children. I'm talking about elementary age kids. And we should never put our teachers in a position to teach material that may lower the inhibition of children regarding early sexual behavior. The next slide is from the same book. This is Normalizing Masturbation. The next slide is the definition. We heard the definition that for gender, which was codified in a Senate Bill 179, which is a housing bill. It was passed in 2017, and the California Teachers Union, Planned Parenthood, and the ACLU all lobbied for this housing bill. They got involved in a housing bill. SB 179 defines gender as male, female, and non-binary. Non-binary means infinite genders, and the law describes what that means. And it also states that transgender is an umbrella term used to describe people whose gender expression does not match the gender they were assigned at birth. If we go back to the slide just before that, okay, keep going. Oh, it's not in there, okay, sorry. There's a children's book, it's called Who Are You? It's for ages 5 through 8. And in the book, it shows a group of adults standing there, and they say, when babies are born, people ask, is it a boy or a girl? Babies can't talk, so grown-ups make a guess by looking at their bodies. So this is how they teach this definition to the young children, and these books are all recommended. In fact, this book was originally in the framework that the California Department of Education was recommending, but there was a lot of parent outcry. So now it's just recommended, but it's not actually in the framework, but obviously teachers can still have access to that. So I think I am out of time. So thank you so very much for your time today.
Sandy, stay there. As a grandfather of 11 children and the father of 3 adult children, I'm always very proud to say that my wife was my first, my last, and my forever. Meaning, for everybody who doesn't understand that, I was a virgin when I got married, and I'm very proud of it. The pressure that's put on children in schools now and the acceptance of sexual activity. Now, when you say, 7th grade, these are 12-year-old children, mind you, 11 and 12-year-old children. 11 and 12 years old, you girls had cooties to me. I was interested, I was very, curious, but you still had cooties. I didn't want anything to do with you. Is this normalizing a sexualization of children in schools to a detriment of their psychological well-being?
So in my opinion, so I have a license, a California license in school counseling, and have a master's degree in education. In my opinion, anything that would normalize masturbation, oral sex, anal sex, all of these things to young children is not appropriate for the children to be taught. Now, are there times when children should be taught certain things because they are sexually active? Of course there are. We want them to be safe. But the vast majority of kids are not sexually active, despite what we may hear. So when we hear, we need to have this material because all of the kids are sexually active. Well, the studies show that they are not, and that the vast majority are not. So therefore, I just don't think it's necessary, and I don't really think the teachers want to be put in positions where they're teaching things that are so controversial.
You got a question?
Yeah. You showed a slide about web resources for teens. Can you give an example from that list of what students might see in some of the outside resources?
Yes, so the one that I saw, one of them that stands out to me was a girl who, it said the clitoris and pleasure. And then it talked about having sexual pleasure on your own, like masturbation. And these can be given to kids at very young ages. In fact, I signed myself up for one of the texts that you can get, and I said that I was like 13 or something. So I keep getting these texts. And the texts will say things like this, like the clitoris and pleasure, where to go for an abortion. And kids as young as, in elementary school are signing up for these. Parents really need to be checking their phones, and checking your children's phones if they have them, and seeing what kind of text they're getting, because really that's just not appropriate. It's grooming, in my opinion, and it just doesn't, any kind of sexualization of children, it just opens the door for pedophiles. And I understand safety, and I want our kids to be safe. I want every student to be safe, and I do realize that some children are engaged in sexual activity. I want them to be safe. I just don't think that I think we should be very, very careful about crossing the line into grooming, putting our teachers in situations that they don't want to be in. And the parents, the more transparent we are with the parents, it's so much better because they can prepare their kids for these lessons. If the lesson's going to be taught, you want the parents to know exactly what was taught or what's going to be taught, so the parents can say, no, I don't want you to teach that lesson. I'm going to teach that one. Or they can have a follow-up discussion. But this idea of we don't want to be fully transparent, I think that every bit of the curriculum should be available for everyone to view in advance of the kids learning it.
All right, I do have one final question. And I think, I'm a father of 5, and I grew up in the South. Now, my question is this. With this current curriculum that's being implemented, we're talking about kids that are at a very early stage in their life where they can be easily affected. Now, don't you think, especially being a counselor, that they're just beginning to try to discover and understand their sexuality? Doesn't this cause confusion?
Yes, it can cause confusion. We don't know. That's one of my problems. A lot of this is not tested. Like there should be studies done, and there should be a lot of evidence. All of our curriculum should be evidence-based. Mm-hmm. Most of it's not. We don't know what the consequences will be of teaching children, say, starting in kindergarten or even pre-K. TK, there is a district next to ours that is teaching the kids about gender in TK and telling them, that their parents guess their gender and those kinds of things. And we don't know what the effects of that will be because it hasn't been studied. And our kids shouldn't be the guinea pigs. My concern is always children first, children's safety, parents' rights, and children's safety. That's what I care about. I want kids to be safe, whether they're not sexually active, whether they are sexually active. I want them to be respected, and I want them to be safe. And I believe that a lot of this curriculum is unsafe. I'm a mother of 5 children myself. I have 2 at high school right now, 3 that have graduated. I want children to be safe, and I understand the world because I have adult children, and I know what's out there. But I do believe that a lot of this curriculum goes far beyond what's necessary.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Very appreciated. Thank you.
I would like to introduce Ariel Fernald to the stage.
Gotta have my phone for later here. Just gonna move this up a tad. Good afternoon, and thank you to the committee, Mark and Ted, Pastor Netz as our host for this wonderful opportunity to speak this afternoon. I get the opportunity to kind of bring it home to you all. We have talked about the curriculum, what is in that curriculum, and some of the effects of it. But right now, I want to hone in specifically, and I want to talk about why we are doing this. Our goal as parents and educators is to raise healthy, safe, happy children who will become healthy and happy and productive adults that make safe choices for themselves and their future. Our job is to provide the education and environment to produce these results. And we recognize the truth of the proverb that says, train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. We know that the decisions that we make now, our children will heavily influence them in their future. This is why we're here today. We're talking about fundamental knowledge and experiences that will affect the way our children view themselves and others, and how they interact with the world and all those in it. The topic of identity and sexuality is deeply rooted in culture, religion, science, psychology, language, and history, not just in our district or our state or even our nation, but in our world. As such, we are charged with the responsibility to protect our children from information and indoctrination that is, number one, medically inaccurate, number two, proven harmful, and number three, undermining parents' rights, as well as disrespectful of their culture and religious beliefs. We've seen the curriculum. Now let's talk about the validity and the impact of that curriculum in light of this criteria, because there are statistics, there is research behind this, and that's what we can count on. That's what we want to look at. The first concern is that some of the information being presented is medically inaccurate and can lead children and teens into harmful decisions. We have seen much of that information here. A small community of individuals without credentials are attempting to redefine terms that have been defined, established, and universally recognized for centuries based upon scientific research done by professionals. For example, since the 1600s, the word gender has been used as synonymous for sex, distinguishing biological male and female. In the 1970s, gender began to be used more frequently to distinguish biological sex from the sexual act. Sex or gender is determined by our biology of being born with either two X chromosomes as a female or an X and a Y chromosome as a male. These chromosomes are evident in nearly every single cell in our body, and this is still being taught in science class. But when our child goes down the hall to sex ed, he will learn something contrary. What is the impact of that? Confusion, inaccuracy, confusion. Gender dysphoria is a real medical diagnosis that has been successfully treated and documented for 40 years. It is a condition whereby an individual does not feel that their gender matches their biology. According to medical research reviewed by Dr. Joseph Goldberg on September 23rd, 2018, 98% of the time, that feeling goes away as a child matures. This is science. This is research. In the Positive Prevention Plus curriculum, gender dysphoria is not acknowledged, but instead transgender is represented as a healthy choice. Yet if you look with me at the startling statistics of our next slide, you'll see that the suicide rate of transgenders after reassignment surgery is 20 times that of the general population. as reported in the Gender Resource Guide. Why would we present to our children this lifestyle as a healthy and safe choice when it leads to self-destructive behavior? Another critical piece of information in the curriculum is the high risk of cervical cancer. This is missing. Amongst our teens, we need to let them know that cervical cancer is not presented to female teens. It is a great risk. It can only be contracted by having sex at an early age or having multiple partners. Similarly, oral and anal sex are presented as only as key and risky as piercing your ears, when you can actually get 8 different STDs, 3 of which you can still get using a condom. Clearly, condoms are not the safest way. Finally, abortion is presented as a viable option with little risk, without mention that women who have abortions are 81% more likely to experience mental health and 155% more likely to commit suicide, according to an extensive study of 877,000 women that was published in the British Journal of Psychiatry. Again, this is fact. This is truth. This is what we need to be presenting. This is the impact that it will have on our society, making choices that are unhealthy. Clearly, abstinence is the best method of prevention of STDs, unwanted pregnancy, and cervical cancer. Why is this curriculum not presenting abstinence as a viable option? These medical inaccuracies and glaring missing information can lead to harmful thinking and choices by our teens and our children. The second issue we must address is that some of the information and how it is presented is inherently harmful for our children. Again, if you look at our next slide, it gives you the definition of pornography. The depiction of erotic behavior as in pictures, that's photographs or drawings, or writing, as in written word descriptions, intended to cause sexual excitement. Materials such as books, or a photograph that depicts erotic behavior and is intended to cause sexual excitement. You have seen some of the pictures in this basic curriculum and the recommended supplemental materials. They are being used and they fit the definition of pornography. The definition of child pornography, our next slide. Child pornography under federal law is defined as any visual depiction of sexually explicit conduct involving a minor. That's a child under 18. A picture of a naked child may constitute illegal pornography if it is sufficiently sexually suggestive. Watching children perform sexual acts, that is exactly what is depicted in the It's Perfectly Normal supplemental material being used in our classrooms. On one page, I've seen with my own eyes, and you have now today, a young girl and a young boy masturbating. Is this necessary for educational purposes? I think not. Child pornography is what Planned Parenthood is doing when they bring in an anatomically correct male mannequin and have a child put a condom on the mannequin in front of their peers. We are now showing them child pornography. This is happening in our community. This happened right here in our community at a local middle school where an 11-year-old girl was made to demonstrate, let me say that again, an 11-year-old girl was made to demonstrate how easy it is to put on a condom on an adult male erect penis while her classmates watched. After class, she called her mother emotionally distraught. Of course she called her mother emotionally distraught because a medical research shows children are deeply affected by pornography. Research shows, in our next slide, that seeing unfamiliar-looking bodies engaging in acts that a child cannot comprehend as are confusing and frightening experiences for a child or adolescents. Children or adolescents may experience autonomical sexual arousal at the sight of pornography, which can confuse them into thinking that they, quote, like it, when in fact their bodies are reacting instinctively without the approval of their brains. In fact, our brains, the development, not until 25, the section of our brain is it fully developed to comprehend these things. Children and adolescents can become desensitized to pornography exposure, and this can result in acting out sexualized behaviors with other children and engaging in high-risk experiences by adolescents. How can we tell our children to report seeing something sexual or inappropriate online when they have seen it all in their classrooms? And it's called normal. The FBI reports these very same activities of showing children pornographic pictures and writings, calling them normal, as well as telling them that everyone is doing it, is a grooming tactic of pedophiles. Based on the research and the FBI guidelines, we should not have this curriculum in the elementary schools, period. We have gone from the state requiring sex ed twice between junior high and high school to teaching gender identity and sex education to kindergartners. We must say no for the sake of our children. And lastly, we've heard it said many times, but the decision-making process and positive prevention plus curriculum is undermining our parental rights. It is disrespectful of our cultural and religious beliefs. You've heard about the websites. You've seen that the state laws require sex ed by age appropriateness. And this is admirable, but not necessarily the best. You see, the schools can only have generalizations of child development based on age, but we parents know our child specifically. We know their individual stage and maturity. How many of you are parents and grandparents? Raise your hand. How many of you would say that your children, your individual children, had different developmental maturity rates? How many of you would say that they had very different personalities? Yes, I am a parent with 3 children myself, and I introduced sex education to my children based on their individual maturity, personality, and gender. That was my right. That is your right. The State Board of Education and LAUSD has decided without the input of parents or recognized experts what should be taught to our children. We speak of cultural understanding, respecting and celebrating differences, yet this critical decision of what would be taught to our children was not given the consideration of how it would be viewed by 80% of Californians who identify themselves as religious. 80% Catholic, Buddhist, Protestant, Jewish, Mormon, Hindu faiths. Let me be clear again that this is not an LGBTQ issue. These statements are not based on feelings or theories, but research and facts that I've shared with you. The issue here is not whether or not sexual orientation or lifestyle is right or wrong. The issue is we cannot teach theories that defy science, research, and centuries of confirming experience, or information and practices that are proven harmful to our children. And we cannot expect that it will produce healthy, happy, and safe, productive human beings. We are the parents. We are the majority. We must not be silent. We must say no to the positive prevention plus curriculum because it presents medically inaccurate information. It is harmful to our children's current and future well-being, and it is undermining parents' rights as well as being disrespectful of their culture and religious beliefs. I encourage you today to take action to protect our children by stopping the implementation of this curriculum in LAUSD. I have the privilege and the opportunity right now to give you 3 things that you can do right now in this room to take action. 3 things. Number 1, if you didn't get a form on your way in, get a form on the way out and opt out. Take a form with you, run it off, share it with your family, with your friends, with your neighbors, with all those in your school. Number 2, you have the opportunity to sign a petition. There has been a petition that has been changed on change.org. You can take your phone out with me right now, and go to change.org. And on the search bar of change.org, you're going to put LAUSD and then put a space. And you're going to put sex ed. So that's change.org. Don't worry, when you get there, I'm going to need to give you a little more information because LAUSD, interestingly enough, has 16 pages of petitions against them. So you're going to want to go to the right one. So you're going to go to change.org, and then you're going to look for the little search sign. Click on there. You'll see the search bar. You're going to put LAUSD space and then sex space ed. Search, and that it will come up. It's next to it. 3 little bars on the corner. On the right-hand side. It's all right. Thank you for your help. Okay.
The brevity of time. Afterwards, if you didn't accomplish it, we will be out there, and Ariel will be able to walk you through it as well.
Absolutely.
Or others will be too.
So make sure that today you opt out, you sign the petition, and you share both. Thank you.
Ariel, the CSE, the Comprehensive Sex Education, is really a UN mandate, which has a whole different set of criteria, as Michael presented, a worldview. However, America is unique because we're founded on the Judeo-Christian values of conservative principles and values, and also independent sovereignties of parental rights. However, this education is being laid out by the 3 of you is gender confusion from kindergarten to 6th grade, sexualization and stimulation in 7th grade, and complete approval and promotion of sexual activity in 9th grade. It is a fact now that Planned Parenthood has offices in public schools now, and students in 7th grade are being told you do not have to have parental approval or consent for an abortion. You don't have to have parental approval or consent to pick up birth control pills. How dangerous is this, as a sociologist, to the human makeup and the mind of these children from kindergarten to 10 years old and then 10 years old up on to becoming a young adult?
It's very dangerous. The issue here is that we're now giving children the opportunity to make choices that they are not developmentally prepared to make. One mother came to me recently and said her 14-year-old son came home from school after being part of the curriculum, being a part of a class that was having the curriculum. And he said to her, "Mom, ask me a question. Ask me anything about sex. I know it all. In fact, I know more than you." This is the dangerous mindset that we're giving our children, that with this information, that they know enough, they have enough knowledge to make decisions, but they don't have enough wisdom, and they don't have enough life experience, and they don't have the maturity to do it.
Well, that gets into the comment I made earlier about a child's natural DNA is to rebel. And the most damaging is rejection. So the curriculum is creating a rebellion against the parents because they want to explore, but yet now they have the complete approval of all the educators, the school systems, all their peers. Their parents are now put in the position of rejection, right?
Yes. The issue here is that if I am a child, I am looking for approval. And if I can't get my parents' approval, but I can go to the school and find another adult approval, then I think I'm right. And again, without the lack of wisdom and guidance or the values of the parent, we have a very dangerous situation for our children. They are in the hands of predators. And that's why we have to be a presence on the campus. If Planned Parenthood is on the campus, then parents, you need to be on the campus.
Yes. Thank you, Ariel. A lot of information has been given, and originally Ted and I were going to ask some follow-up questions, but I think that your participation is very valued. So if you would like to ask a question of any of the panelists or Ted or I, if you'd like to line up in this middle aisle, Abby will have a microphone there, and we'll be happy to answer your questions.
Thank you. We're going to start, Victoria. We received... Victoria. Hi.
Where'd you go?
Oh, where's Victoria? We received some questions in advance. If you guys want to stand over to this side, and then there we go. Sorry. I have my friend Victoria.
There's Victoria.
There she goes.
Okay, there she is. Okay, so we received some questions that were handed to us in advance. So I just want to begin and have Victoria read a couple of those that we received, and then we'll get to the people who are lined up.
Okay.
All right, actually, we'll go ahead. Are you ready with your question?
Yes. Okay, let's a question to the attorney. As it was pointed out, what is being taught is pornography, and it's child pornography, and it's against the law. So why hasn't someone pursued this through the courts up to the highest court?
It should be on, Michael. It's ready for
Yes.
you, and you can stand or you can use the wireless.
You know, that is an excellent question. Why hasn't it been done? And the reason why is because the courts, and this is something that requires more persistence on we lawyer types, but the courts have ruled against this kind of these kinds of cases. I am not aware of a single case that has brought in, and you raise a great way of doing this, that has put the two together, child pornography, the illegality of that, and what we have here presented. So I think this is something that is going to require wisdom and more effort on our parts.
Thank you, Michael. All right, come on up.
I'm going to chime in a little bit on that, Abby, as well. It also takes the community to uprise, to show these individuals who are making decisions on your behalf, you've had it. You don't want to accept this anymore. It gives more credence to the elected officials to stand up against it as well. If your elected officials know that there's heat on their backside and they may lose their seat, they're going to act in your behalf, not in their behalf.
Well, I just want to make one comment along the same lines. Here's to me what is the most disturbing. The pictures that they show prior and what they're currently using. As parents, we know if any of our children showed up in school and drew one of those pictures, we'd have Child Protective Services kicking our door in. This is obscene, it is offensive, and like I said at the beginning, as parents, we are on the front line, and we have got to change this. Okay, the next question, please.
All right, you have a question?
Oh, hi, I'm a teacher and a parent, and I was wondering, how do you know LAUSD is bringing this down to elementary schools, and what have you heard from the LAUSD officials in detail, please?
Sounds like a question for Sandy.
Sandy, can you take that one?
Sandy and Ariel both can probably chime in.
So I don't have a child in LAUSD, but what I understand is that from what the mom, so there were a group of moms who are all amazing that put this together, and they have been researching what is being taught. And children in elementary school are coming home with what would be considered the sex ed material, which includes some of the teachings about gender identity, some of the teachings about just some of the same content that is required in AB 329. So in the law, AB 329, it says that it is not required to teach these things under grade 7, but that it's recommended. And so sometimes they're taught as anti-bullying programs and not sex ed, but the material is pretty much the same, whether it's anti-bullying or sex ed. So that's a very good question. I think you should ask the principal and ask the board.
Yeah, actually, let me chime in because I think
ahead.
you're asking what's happening here in LAUSD, and that's something that the parents and I discussed. So they teach Positive Prevention Plus. They have a program called I Matter, and a third one that my friend will help me name in just a second. But we know because parents came to us and they said, my kids are receiving these lessons and I want to view the materials. We sat in an LAUSD district meeting where they presented the curriculum to us, and we saw with our own eyes the slides that were presented here today. Just to want to clarify and make a distinction between the curriculum and the supplemental materials. So there are things that your teacher has the option to include, and there are things that they are required to teach. And that's where it comes down to you. You need to talk to your teacher to find out what they are actually doing in the classroom, because they may be doing something different, sort of under the radar of LAUSD. But if they're following LAUSD guidelines, they are implementing the full California State recommended framework in your classes. So it's really important that you find out. We don't want to alarm anybody about what's happening in your class. Talk to your teacher and find out what's actually going on there.
Abby, I'm going to add to that a little bit. Nobody in here is trying to bash any teacher or educator in the system. It is a state mandate and framework that's being pushed down. The scary part of this framework is gives the teachers options to supplement their curriculums. Am I correct? So they can do whatever they want to do, basically, so long as they're sticking to the state mandated framework. It gives a massive lateral movement to the teachers. Now, if you have a teacher that's there that isn't like 99% of the teachers that are there, there might be somebody's having a rough time in life and starting fantasizing the wrong things. This teacher can become extremely dangerous. This is where it is just not appropriate, in my personal opinion, for any of this curriculum to be taking place in school. It's not what schools are meant for. It's not what schools are there for. It's not a preparation in life. And I can tell you, they didn't have it with my great-grandfather. He figured it out. I'm here. That's the proof of it.
And I just want to chime in on just one quick comment. How important this forum is that we have today. The mayor of LA did not want us to have it. He did not, because the mayor's office would prefer that we remain uninformed so they can push forward this agenda without any pushback or any adverse reaction to it. I just had to get that out there.
I did want to clarify that for the supplemental curriculum, you may have heard that some of those books were removed. There were a group of parents who went to Sacramento, requested that certain books be removed. They were taken off of the California State website, and so you hear a lot of people saying they're not there anymore. But the reality is they can still be taught in the LAUSD schools. I personally asked that question to the gentleman who's in charge of the district. He said, yes, they can use those curriculums. So don't be confused by sort of the mixed messaging that you might be receiving. So I hope that helps. I'll hold it for you.
All right, thank you. Both these two gentlemen have pointed out a very salient point. We have voted for the people who are making the decisions that are undermining the moral fabric of our society. We are at fault. We are not voting for the right people. We have to learn who is pushing ethical and moral values. And those others we get rid of, and then the problem can go away. Now, we have a lot of activist judges who were previously installed. They don't vote according to law, they vote according to their opinions. We need to get rid of those justices also. They're immoral, they're pushing a leftist immorality that will destroy America and their kids.
Do you have a question?
Absolutely.
That was it.
Okay, a statement.
Okay.
Well, I'm gonna give myself a shameless plug.
Oh, go ahead, Mark.
I hope you all vote for me. And one other shameless plug. If you want to know on a Christian worldview recommendations of who to vote for, go to craighuey.com, LA County voter recommendations. You will be safe in taking that recommendation.
Okay, I do want to say we invited Republicans, Democrats, left liberals, and conservatives to come. These are the people who showed up, and we're delighted that they did.
Yes.
Hi, my name is Burton Hunter. I'm on one of the neighborhood council boards, and we were supporting the forum that was going to be today at another location, but we were denied the opportunity to do that. So as individuals, we're here because we're concerned people in the community too.
Thank you.
And just in regard to the comment that you were making about the supplemental material and the sex education stuff that they're allowed to use, if it's taken off the official list, why are they allowed to use that resource and send people to it, especially with the stuff that is extremely graphic and a lot of it, much of it can be considered apparent material. Why are they allowed to put that in there or utilize it? If I'm allowed to ask a second question, and what will it take to get the sex ed curriculum HEART program that was shown on one of the slides, at least to be considered by the committees or the school districts?
So this is a well-informed gentleman. There are
Yes.
curriculums that meet up to the California state laws that are not presented here because they haven't been adopted, but HEART curriculum is one of those that we as a team presented to LAUSD and asked them to strongly consider. They said they would, but I haven't heard anything back. But that curriculum meets the standards, provides the information, but does so in a very unprovocative and not very intrusive manner. So do you guys have any comments on alternative curriculums?
I would love to address both your questions. Your first question in asking why is that curriculum still allowed is simply because the powers that be are doing the minimal to be able to appease the parents and the constituents. That they took it off, but they still make it available, and that allows them to still have their agenda pushed if the teachers choose to. And the issue there, and what we recognize is that they will choose to use this curriculum, and they are, because we hear it reported from parents every week in their classrooms. The second question, which is, how are we going to make a change in this? The change happens in forums like this. It's the parents have to start a movement. If you look at society, most of the people that are in this room would not have had a vote. At some point, you wouldn't have had a vote. And the way that movement, the way that changed in law was because people stood up and they said, this is not right, and they fought for it.
And signed the petition, because that request is in there in the petition.
And so you need to sign the petition because the request is made in that petition. And if there's enough numbers, then it gets attention. Why? Because we need to realize that every day that a child sits in that class, there's money that it goes to that school district. This is about pocketbooks, and it's about politics. So if we can hit them in the pocketbook and we can hit them in their politics, that's where it makes a difference, their public image. So if LAUSD gets a lot of bad press, that doesn't look good. If they have to defend themselves in whatever ways, whether it's legal or in some other way, that's hitting them in their pocketbook and in their PR. And so parents, you have to get vocal.
Okay, let's get the next question. Thank you.
Nets, real quick. And is it okay if we go over a couple of minutes?
He said we could have 10.
About 10. Okay, so we're going to cut the line off back there. So let's make our questions short, concise, and our answers will be the same. Okay. And we'll be here afterwards to be able to talk to you individually.
Just two quick questions. My name's Josh Hershey. I've been a pastor here in the Valley for 10 years and interested in these questions for a while. I've approached some of the schools near my church. And the first question I have is, I know you brought up there haven't been many studies done on the long-term effects of educating young children. I know, I think it was in 2018, Lisa Littman from Brown University did a study on rapid onset gender dysphoria. I was wondering if you were aware of any other studies, but I know there's like movements to deplatform a lot of these studies that are being done in Ivy League schools, even at high levels, and what is being done about that, what can be done about that. And then the second question is, I'm glad everyone wants to be involved in signing petitions. I hope everyone signs the petition today. But what else can we do? Because this is such, to me, a radical thing that's being implemented and causing such harm to children today. I know in places like, for instance, in the UK, in Birmingham, the people who have spoken up is the Muslim community. And one thing they did is 600 of them band together and actually took all their kids out of the school for a day, and it actually caused the school district there to change what they were teaching in the school. So do you guys have any ideas of maybe what has been done in different communities that is even more, say, proactive than signing a petition, or have you thought through that of further things we could do?
On the reports and studies, I think Ariel will be very well equipped to answer that one. Is pertaining to the second aspect of it. Sign up on the email list out there. Abby and the group of mothers will keep you very well informed of the next forums and so forth. It's up to you, everybody in here that's fallen asleep, because we're in a generation that was taught differently. We need to wake up and get everybody to these forums, because the more that you learn about what's happening, the more rejection that the school systems will have about this curriculum.
Ariel, do you have an answer about studies in gender dysphoria?
Yes, there are studies that are being done. As I said earlier, this has actually been studied. For the past 40 years, there has been work that's being done. One of the things that I want to say that's interesting is that a lot of the information that you and I might want, or videos, things that are going up online, we have to be very careful because they can be taken down. And so, but the studies are out there. It's just a matter of looking into them. We have them in our own psychiatric journals here, as well as in other countries, particularly the British Journal has several of them. In regards to the second question, what we can do, I think that what you're saying is, I think we do need to look at past movements and what made them effective. People sitting in, people taking their children out of the school, as you said, as you indicated, those are things that we can do right away. But it takes more than just those that organize this. It takes you and your school and your community taking responsibility and doing it.
Thank you.
If I may add.
Hello, this is Wonderful Forum here. My name's William Craig, and Ariel, you did a great job, and I'm so glad to be a part of the church you're at. My question is real simple. Is there a collective effort of parents? Is there any organization where parents are operating in a collective effort together to make a difference and making a loud voice as parents together? PTA or anything, because you keep saying that parents go down there individually. Is there an organization where we can coagulate and go down there as a force?
There are several. Informed Parents of California is one. You can find them online. They do a lot of good work on this. There's also Let Parents Decide, which I think I've made that a note on my presentation. But the bottom line is that I just wanted to follow up on another question, which I think dovetails with this one, is that, whenever we see really bad things happening in a school, what happens? All the parents run down to the school. Is my kid okay? Is my kid okay? That's where we're at. Is my kid okay? No, your kid's not okay. Your children are being taught things that are destructive. As we've heard from the experts here, this is bad stuff. This is changing their lives, sometimes forever. So storm the gates is what has to happen. I'm sorry, but that's what has to happen.
Also,
and I don't mean violence. I'm just saying, get there and tell them you care.
Show up.
And tell them that you're watching.
As Sandy has done, is running for the Board of Trustees of the school board. We need you to run for the school boards. She's up against 4 liberals, and she's the only conservative voice on there. You need to get active, become part of the school board, and make our voices heard, because your voice translates the community's voice. That's what you have to do on a smaller state.
Yeah, and I think that the school needs to know that it's not just conservatives. I want to point out that object to this curriculum. It doesn't matter if you're left, middle, or right. There's problems in this curriculum no matter where you stand politically.
Yeah, well, you've answered actually all of my questions, but since I'm here, I'm going to ask another question. I'm a teacher. I work for the LAUSD, and I'm not a parent yet, but I'm concerned for the well-being of our kids. I want to ask a question from Sandy, since she works at the district, and it's a different question. I've done some research. I've met with some people on the top, in LAUSD, and I've been asking them a question: is how do we put the certain elective, how do we implement Bible as literature elective in our schools? And I've done research. There is such an elective in high schools, 9th and 10th grade. But how do we do it in the middle schools so it can be offered in 8th and 9th grade?
That's a good question. I think that if a group of teachers or even one teacher proposes it at the school site, and how it works in my district, because I'm not in LA Unified, how it works in my district is that teachers can propose various types of curriculum. Like we just started one at one of our high schools. It's kind of a pilot program for the classics, for classic literature. And so, you know, you could propose it as an elective, like you said. And also, I do want to say that any student can read any religious book while they're at school. It's not prohibited. They can bring their Bible, they can, or their Quran or whatever it is, and read that on their free time or whatever. And those are not prohibited from school. But if you want to actually use it as a literature course, that would probably come from the teachers, would be my guess.
Okay, next question.
I'll also chime in a little bit on that one as well. We're the front line. The individual homes are the front line. We cannot expect the schools to teach our children our faith. Every morning when you wake up and you take your kids to school, say prayer. When they come home, they go to bed, say prayer. If you're not teaching them that at home, they go out into the real world and they do not have the armor they need to defend the evil that's out there.
All right. We have 5 minutes, and we'll get to our last of our questions.
Very quickly, everyone did an amazing job. Thank you so much for being here. And with all the evidence that is presented, everything that is so compelling, my question is, what on earth could the other side be saying to justify having this junk in our schools? That's question one. And then question two, we already kind of know the answer to, but I want to hear you say it. Is this a partisan push for this agenda, and who's pushing it?
Someone's going to play devil's advocate and then explain the platform.
As the one politician up here, there are so many things that are not partisan, and that is our children's safety at school is not owned by a Democrat or owned by a Republican. It's owned by the community. And so if your elected official is not concerned about all parts of the well-being of your child, do not vote for them. That's it.
And here's my comment on that. See, the background behind this curriculum that's being put forth is based on a false narrative. And that false narrative is that bullying was the premise and the basis. And it was based upon gender. And studies have shown that less than 1% of children are bullied because of the sexual orientation. Less than 1%. But that was the false narrative that was put out there that resulted in this curriculum being adopted by the LA Unified School District. It's a false narrative. That's how we got to this point. I would join what Mark is saying. I'm a Southern Democrat. What I always say, problems like solutions have no political affiliation. If there's a problem out there, find the best solution for it. I don't care where it comes from. Because at the end of the day, this is about our morals, this is about our values that are sacrosanct. And it begins at home, and we have to defend that with every fiber of our being. A gentleman asked earlier, what can we do? Yes, you can do petitions, but you can also start a letter writing campaign. Start calling, inundate them to the point that you cannot be ignored. When Abby said that sometimes they said that not that many people show up, if just one person shows up, in order to adversely stop what they're doing, be the loudest voice in the room. Be the loudest voice in the room.
Can I just say one thing about that? So a lot of times when boards make decisions, because I'm a member of a school board, there might be activist groups that are backing board members. And I know that on various school boards across the state, Planned Parenthood has put money into different races to try to get school board members on the school boards that will back up the curriculum that they want. And if it's not clear to everyone what this curriculum is about, if children are sexualized at an early age and they need an abortion or they need birth control pills and they're told only certain places to go, that's a business model. And so I just think that it doesn't matter what your political affiliation is. These are our kids. We need to follow the money. We need to make sure our elected officials are not bought and paid for by any union, Planned Parenthood, ACLU, anyone, that those people are there to represent us as the parents and the community, and that's where their priorities are. I mean, I get paid nothing to be on the school board. There's no benefit. All I'm there for is for the kids, financial benefit. I get a lot of benefit from feeling good about what I do. But you want school board members that just are there for the kids and for the parents that will listen to try to come up with good solutions, because when you see the school board members making bizarre choices, you can guarantee that there are people telling them to make those choices. And it might go against their own personal morals even. But they might be told things like, oh, well, it's not going to be that bad, or don't worry, we don't actually do that part, and that kind of thing. But school board members just need to have the backbone to say, no, I'm not going to do it. Yeah. And then when all of this stuff breaks loose and they start bashing you and, just literally they will attack you personally in every way as a board member, and you have to be strong, and you have to have a coalition of parents that are behind you and that say, keep going, we're here behind you, we want you, please be our voice on the board.
Okay, we have 4 last people that want to ask questions. It's going to be a lightning round, so please make your questions succinct and direct it to one person, and only that person will answer it.
Hi, I have an adult child, but I have a lot of friends who have kids in private schools, not necessarily Christian private schools, also who homeschool using the K-12 program for their kids. What is the ramification of this California law and this curriculum for those children?
I think that's for you, Michael. Do you know about any laws proposed to bring this to private schools?
I do. Basically, if it's a charter school, they have to follow the same curriculum laws as do the other school districts. So there's no safe haven there. Christian schools and other religious schools can frame their curriculum, and so basically it depends on where they're at. If you have a homeschool, and you are under a charter school, then you might be more limited in what you can do than if you're under one of the more independent organizations.
What about
okay.
non-faith-based private
is private.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
Come on up.
Next.
Hi, my name is Amy. I'm a new mom, but a very old teacher. I've been teaching for 25 years for LAUSD. And first of all, it's not our job to teach faith, sex ed. These kids in public school, and I was raised in public school. I teach public school. I'm a big advocate of public school. However, these kids don't come from cookie-cutter houses. So a lot of the sexual stuff that comes from the kids at school learning from each other is from provocative stuff that comes from home, unfortunately, or the street or whatever. So my question is that I do believe a lot of education does need to come in from the school, because they're having to deal with a lot of stuff that happens right there on the playground. Though I am not trained in it, that's a psychologist's job and things like this. So my question is, when I look at this, I haven't seen any of this curriculum in LAUSD so far, but if it does happen to develop, Michael, if you can answer this, do you know because teachers don't want to be liable to teach this type of things, most teachers, because it's scary to touch that. So do you know if our teacher unions would be able to, not just parents fighting for it, but our teacher unions to protect teachers, will have anything to do with the adoption of the materials and things like that?
Yeah, teachers are in a tough spot.
The teacher is in a tough spot. We have assisted some teachers who have a moral, religious belief that they can't teach this stuff. I will tell you, it's uphill climb. And the unions, they're pretty well complicit in all of this. I'm sorry, I don't think you're going to find a really warm and friendly there. But you can ask, and you can ask for accommodation, and that's what we suggest you do. People can contact pgi.org, and we can answer some of those questions directly on specific cases.
Next question.
Can I just say quickly to the teacher, I think that the more teachers that get together and make their concerns known, the better, because I think that teachers are powerful, and within the union, if the teachers begin to understand that they can say things to each other and to try to influence the union to protect them from these, from teaching things that they feel put them in liability, I think that you should. I think you should talk to your union leaders and try to persuade them.
We have been dancing around the politics of this. I guess it's touchy, but it's not fair to have people come here and say, well, the school system doesn't give you answers, and then us not give answers. So we need to be real about this, and I'll put it in the form of a question. With all due respect to the gentleman from the South, I'm from the South. Isn't it true when we talked about lawmakers passing these terrible curricula that are destroying our schools, that virtually all the lawmakers who are doing it are Democrats, and the ones who are against it are Republicans? And isn't it true, sir, when you said that there was a party that was trying, or there was a group that was trying to pass this false narrative to try to get this done, that virtually all of that group are Democrats, progressives, and all of the people who are against them are Republicans? Let's get real about who's on our side.
All right.
Okay, I'm gonna answer, and I told Ted I'm gonna answer. You have to distinguish between a Democrat, a registered Democrat, and a party that's gone rogue. The Democrat leadership has been taken over by progressives. So when you talk to an average Democrat like Ted, he doesn't agree with this.
No,
he doesn't agree with the curriculum. So I don't put it on the Democrat, registered Democrat. I put it on that leadership. And this is why the Republican leadership has been against it. Okay, so yes, the Democrat leadership is that, but I don't blame the individual Democrats at all, because they're not connected with what their leadership is doing.
And I'm going to chime in on that just a little bit more. You have to understand, when curriculums like this get passed, there's complicity on both sides. It's not just Democrats. There are some moderate Republicans, some liberal Republicans that are okay with it. So you cannot put it all on Democrats. There is complicity across the board, from libertarians, from Democrats, from Republicans, from independents. You cannot simply lay the blame at the feet of the Democrats. You cannot. You can't. Okay, now, are they probably mostly to blame? I'll own that. That's fine. I'll own that. I will. Okay? I'll do like I said. I'm party faithful, but not policy loyal. But you can't just blame everything, all the ills of this country, just on the Democratic Party.
Ted, can I throw the responsibility back on the parents? Because a lot of times we believe that the sex ed curriculum is going to be good for our kids because we trust the schools, and we think, oh, don't we want them to learn about inclusion and diversity? And we hear that and we say, yes, and I would as well. But then we get lied to and being told that in order to teach inclusion, we have to teach sexuality to children. I can teach love and respect for all people who behave like me, who don't behave like me, who look like me, who don't look like me, without sexualizing children. I can teach them kindness and respect without being explicit.
Our last question here. When he got in line, he had brown hair.
I'm not sure who to direct this to, but I'm a retired teacher. While I was teaching, I wrote a grant to teach what was called a community-based abstinence education program in about 10 LAUSD schools in the Watts area. Those grants were canceled after 2008, but in 2016, we wrote another grant, and we were awarded a grant called Sexual Risk Avoidance Education. What my question is, we're having a very difficult time being able to implement this program in LAUSD, although underground we are doing it in some schools. Do you have any recommendation how we can utilize our grant in Los Angeles, even though the district doesn't, they say that it's against the law to teach abstinence only. There is no abstinence only program that I've ever heard of. Ours is not abstinence only, but it does promote abstinence as the highest standard and focuses on why that's a good idea. What recommendations do you have for us to be able to continue to implement our program?
The first recommendation that pops into my head is, can it be the opt-out option? So when students choose not to, when parents opt their child out of the sex ed, can there be an abstinence-based curriculum like you're talking about, that you can give full transparency to the parents and say, is this an option that you would like your child to do instead of the one that is being taught by LAUSD? That's just one suggestion.
I would also encourage you to go to charter schools, because charter schools do have more flexibility, they have more option, and they are taking that option. They are looking at different curriculums and not just taking what LAUSD is handing down. So I would certainly go to the charter schools in the area, and I would also go to parent groups. And I would make it known what is available at those parent groups. A lot of times schools have open forums, they have open meetings from their parent groups. And those are opportunities where you can come and get on the agenda and share with them the opportunity that you have with your curriculum. And I think it would be greatly received, especially if you're presenting it in a way that shows the differences between the current curriculum and the curriculum that you're offering them.
Just make one more comment. The Centers for Disease Control Prevention do recommend the risk avoidance approach, which is abstinence-based, because that's the only 100% sure way of not contracting a sexually transmitted disease or, unwanted pregnancy, and all those kinds of things. So you have that. Why are we not following the CDC standard?
I would also say this is a federal issue, so not only do petitions to local governments, but it's really the federal government also that's dealing with this issue, what is being taught young people in America. So the current administration has promoted doing more optimal health education for young people. And if they hear more of that, I think that our kind of grants will be further.
Thank you.
All right. Unfortunately, we're out of time, but we will be around at the end to ask questions too.
I'm going to make a closing comment. As he's brought it up very eloquently, it really is kind of a federal issue. When I'm elected, I don't believe this curriculum is in the best interest of our children. However, the curriculum that should be proposed is teaching parents how to talk to their children about these issues. That's it. That's a simple solution. They make the complaint that parents are not teaching their children about sex education and preventions and so forth. We need to educate the parents. That's the solution to this problem. It's not confusing their gender from kindergarten to 6th grade. It's not sexualizing them in 7th grade and 9th grade. That is trampling on parental rights. Simple and factual. It's been proven. It's been expressed very eloquently by these three individuals here. We need to teach the parents, not the children, about these issues. I want to go ahead and thank everybody who has stayed, everybody who came here, everybody who has chimed in on live Facebook, YouTube, and Pinterest. I believe that it's gone out live. I want to thank all of you for joining us, coming here and becoming educated about the ills that are happening in our public schools. Thank you very much.
Parents, as you are leaving, I just wanted to offer you a resource, parents, as you're leaving. If you look up genderresourceguide.com, you will find all kinds of studies and all the information you possibly can to become educated.
Okay, I want to finish by thanking Ariel, thanking Sandy, thanking Michael, thanking Ted. I also want to thank Pastor Netz for giving the facility here as well. I want to thank Abby and the parents that have been on the front lines battling this for a long time. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Outside, there are resources. You can talk to Chuck Dudek and the tables out there, and you can get everything answered again. Microphone. If everybody can go ahead and leave the sanctuary out into the foyer because they're going to be preparing for services at 6. We'll all go out there to talk to you. Thank you very much.
So we will really appreciate if you please. Can I have your attention, please? Shh. Can I have your attention? Can we leave just the sanctuary? They're going to start the practice, and we can go to the foyer, no problem. But just the sanctuary. Thank you so much.